Hello, everyone. Welcome to those of you who are joining us online. Welcome to this culminating event of our French semester of the Song Lab course here at NEC. I'm quite certain that I speak for all of Margo Garrett's former students when I say that she has had and continues to have a galvanizing force in our lives. It's difficult to look at a piece of vocal music and not immediately remember what Margo Garrett said about it. Of all the teachers I worked with, she has the most effortless way of drawing the many, many details on the score, the many complexities of the poems into something that feels utterly palpable, utterly approachable. Her many, many career highlights would take this entire class to enumerate. I know a bio was put in the chat, and I hope my students spent the weekend like I did, going through deep cuts of the Margo Garrett discography, which is quite vast and quite exciting. We've been looking forward to this all semester. Please, let's all welcome Margo Garrett, and I'm going to sit and take notes for 2 hours. Thank you.
Well, I don't think I've ever started a class with tears before, but here we are. Live, learn, and experience. Thank you, JJ. That means the world to me. I'm very excited to be here with all of you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay, that's good for starters. When we were planning for this evening, of course, many things came to change the face of it, and I always believe there are never mistakes made in such events. Many years ago, John Wustman said, things happen the way they should. They grow like mopsy, and I always remembered that. So this is one of those occasions. I know you've been studying Verlaine, I know you've been studying Fauré, and I know that you've been studying or musing over the study of the l'accent d'insistance. I'd like for that to be our running theme through tonight's work, so that I'm not going to dwell on the history of Fauré, although I feel very close to him. I'm not going to get into all of the pathos of Verlaine that would leave us here demoralized and inspired for some weeks we could be. But instead, I want to work on the actual ways of bringing the poetry and the music together in harmony, and hopefully in the best French style we can muster. We're all students of this great, elusive study that is Mélodie. So, without saying more than that, let's just go to work, okay? Jayon and Michael.
Fantastic. Good evening everyone. I am Michael Banworth, this is Jayon Shin, and we will be presenting Claire de Lune by Gabriel Fauré.
Lovely. What you have going for you is already quite good and takes us pretty far along. The lilting quality, Jan, of your beautiful voice goes a long way to take us to the kind of minuet that Fauré was writing here, a nod back to antiquity and look forward in terms of how he set the classicism of Verlaine's work, the perfect symmetry in this poetry, and messed it up a little bit. I love it very much. Michael, good playing, either very, very good playing, either from the acoustics of this moment, or in fact, I think there's too much pedal. Now, others in the room can probably tell us, JJ and Tanya, we'll look to as our arbiters when we need to determine whether we're working with an imperfect, as they all are, electronic situation, or whether in fact my headphones aren't great. That they can't help, but I think my headphones are wonderful. I'm glad to have them. So right now I feel that there's a little bit too much French Impressionism going on here in the pedaling, and I would ask you to be a classic Mozartian even in this. Very crystal clear like your finger work, but in the pedal also. Shallower pedal, maybe 3 beats a measure for the most part, until we get to the B section and we have long measures of harmony, in which case we want still to be sure that the pedal is not always full to the bottom, so that it enlarges itself acoustically each time we repeat a note in a particular chord. But those things, you've already got a lot going for you. What I want to say is that it needs to be steadier. There's too much stopping and starting. Everybody, I'm old enough to have told the story many, many, many times now of having first played for Bernac when I was a teenager. And he did nothing for day after day, just beat on the piano. Whatever he wanted me to play, it was pounding the piano. And I couldn't quite figure it out because I thought I had studied this music very carefully and that I was very expressive. And yes, I knew that it was a very different thing from the Hochromantisches German leader that I was also studying at the same time. But I just didn't know how simple this music could be. I thought I still had to put some of myself in it, enough to make me feel like I was making good music, or that I was caring about it even. I thought people needed to know that I had a part in this, and it couldn't be further from the truth. If we don't get out of the way of the rhythm of the text, that means linguistics, and as well as the music. If we don't just let it be in the beginning, we don't know how simple it can be desirably. My husband always said it this way: as an orchestral musician, he envied my ability to play as a soloist or as a member of an ensemble in which we chose rubato or the lack of it. And he said, it's wonderful, Margo, that you have such ability to be freed from the tyranny of the beat. He said, but you've never practiced the beat enough to know what the pure tempo is. So you don't know how far you're going away from it when you use rubato. And that is what I would say to all of us about our French style in this Germanic country of ours. We started studying the German repertory before the French repertory. We're still trying to figure out the French repertory. And I would say to us that my bottom line in everything but Debussy and some Ravel is that we have to be able to know what the pure, almost metric mechanical tempo is, and be able to find out what is desirable, or at least to be learned from that. And if we can get to that point, then we have a shot at getting to a place where our tempo will be supple and it will live and breathe, but it will be so simple that it's almost, or can be, absolutely strict. Lots of phrasing, but without time. Lots of colors, but without agogics, without Luftpauses and things like that, which you're not doing. But it was interesting to me, Michael, because you were trying out the piano as I was listening. When you played by yourself, I thought, oh, good tempo, good, steady, wonderful. And the minute you played it for Jayan, all of a sudden it changed. It was like you were considering her. I would like for you not to consider her. And to a certain extent, she's going to be the person that ultimately is going to pull you out of your metronome. How is she going to do that? Because she's going to think about words instead of the music. Jayan, tell me what you know about the l'accent d'insistance in French singing. Do you know anything about it? Have you studied it?
Actually, I'm not in this class.
I know you aren't, but I'm asking if you've ever heard of it.
That's like the stress.
Yes, it is about stress. Okay, I would like for us to work on it even without, because this is for the good of the class, and you're being, first of all, a saint to be here tonight to keep this class happening. So we're very grateful to you. You can do no wrong tonight. I would like to work on the text a little bit. Now, it sounds like I'm abandoning my theme, but I'm not. We've just talked about the simplicity of tempo, the suppleness perhaps ultimately, but the simpleness, almost metronomic. In fact, I would use a metronome, absolutely, in this piece, because we don't want to change tempos ever. Whether we choose to make a little retard in measure 37, slowing up into the A-flat section of Au calme, Claire de Lune, triste et beau, or not. I really like it both ways when played masterfully. So I'm not going to argue about those things. I personally play it as straight as I can and as changing as I can, so that if the song is going to mix with the moonlight, I would like for my little dance, which I think of it as a dance because I'm playing it at the piano, so it feels like a dance to me. Dum ba da dum ba da da dum ba da 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 da. It just goes there. So for me, it just becomes an A-flat chord that ripples, but it's just almost still water, as opposed to the incredible syncopation in the left hand and the rhythm of the right hand before. So I find that more subtle, and besides, I still have the memory of hearing Mr. Bernac in this song pounding particularly loudly in that place because he knew I was going to slow down, and he just didn't want me to. And that was a lesson moment, so it's not to say that that's the way he liked this song. I don't know how he liked the song, to tell you the truth. So now let's read some text. Using insistance is something that Mr. Bernac talked about when he was in America, but he didn't ever use the term. He said, you have to sing the little notes. The long notes take care of themselves in the French language, but the little notes are where we have understanding of the text. Now I'm going to go a step further and say that when we treat words with insistance or émotion, some people call this accent, emotional accent, rather than insisting accent. I don't care what we call it. The definition of the word is in that syllable, often, most often. For example, if we say paysage, paysage, what are you going to know what the word is from that tonic stress? All French words are stressed tonically. They're on their last syllable. Charmant, charmant. How are we going to understand from mont what the word is? But if I hear char, char, then I think, oh, charming. I get it. It's a cognate, practically. We hear fantasque, task. Does task tell me what it means? Unless that is the word? No, it doesn't. But if I hear fantasque, it is the insisting accent that tells us the definition of the word, and therefore we can have some real fun defining it, not just as what it means, but as what we want it to mean to our audience. That comes under the category of your performance choices. Yeah? So the simple little rules are, when a word that we wish to treat with a special kind of flavor in the French language begins with a consonant, we are going to stress and I don't like to think of an accent, even though that's what the French Academy has called it, l'accent. You're going to stress that first syllable of the word that needs to be given this special treatment, and they are nouns, verbs, adjectives, occasionally an adverb or a conjunction, but very rarely. Yeah? So let's identify them quickly. Votre âme est un paysage choisi, right? So I need to hear paysage instead of paysage. Now, if you were singing the rhythm of the meter, you would say, votre âme est un paysage choisi, que vont charmants masques et bergamasques, right? Because that's what's written. It's a minuet. You can't change the dance. But we want you to sing the rhythm of the words. And I want you to use this insistance, and we're going to go all the way through it because we have a little bit of time to make up working with you too after introductions. So, votre âme est un paysage choisi. I want to hear choix. Que vont charmants masques et bergamasques. Okay? So you have to have two syllables in a word in order to have an insistance, and it has to have a consonant beginning that word, right? We're okay so far. Jouant du luth et dansant. Look how often you will see how often we have insistance present in the weakest rhythmic place on the score. Michael is already musing. What is this going to mean to him? Et quasi triste sous leur déguisement. Wow, what a great insistance. D-E, aigu. Déguisement fantasque. So your rhythm just mutilates his. Wait till you hear it in a delicious way. Tout en chantant, chant, sur le mode mineur, l'amour vainqueur et la vie opportune. Aha. There's a word that begins with a vowel, and for reasons of elision and all the things that Tanya and JJ will tell you, it confuses our ear often. We opt to accent most of the time the second syllable. When a word begins with a vowel that we wish to treat with insistance, we treat it with the second syllable of the word, not the first. So, et la vie opportune. Et la vie opportune. Maybe that's a little strong because we want more legato, we'll find out later. Ils n'ont pas l'air de croire à leur bonheur. There's the next one. Bonheur. Et leur chanson se mêle au clair de lune. Au calme clair de lune, triste et beau, qui fait rêver. There's the next one. Rêver. An insistance we need there. Les oiseaux dans les arbres. Ils sanglotaient. There's the next one on sang. Ils sanglotaient d'extase les gidoux. Les grands gidoux sveltes parmi les marbres. Do you know where they are? Now, you can mark them any way you want to. I use the three sides of a box. I start at the end of the syllable that I want to treat and go back to the beginning of that syllable, over it, and then down beside it, and then under it. So I'm sort of when I was a girl and I played with paper dolls, you know how you would punch the hand out first? It was fun to do that because you could see it. It's sort of like that on the page, only it's this way. Any way you want to, but it needs to stand out. Now, will we overdo this when we first start doing it? Yes, I hope you will. I want you to shake up the rhythm. Michael, I would like for you to be as simple as possible until she demands that you not. And then you're going to lead towards her only long enough for her to make this insistance understood. And then we're going to go on. And I'm asking you all for a little bit faster tempo. Okay, but not now. We're going to work in the tempo that you were, but ultimately, and we won't get to it tonight, I'd like for you to think of faster tempo. Maybe we'll try it tonight. We've got time. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Okay, Michael, now you set your tempo and don't think about anything that's coming except how beautiful that it is to live in the calm, clear moonlight in this tempo. Not being expressive except to do what's on the page. And it is enough just to do that. Lots of phrasing, but phrasing that is dynamic, not with rubato. Excuse me. And also, I would tell you, do you know what it is like to play sans nuance in the French style? Has anybody ever asked you to do that? Okay, as we go back this time, I would like for you, instead of going in an Italianate style, higher, louder as you go higher, and softer as you go lower, I would like for you to play all notes the same beautiful dynamic level. So, da 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 da. There, you hear my crescendo? That was bad. Da 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 da. You will have a sense of some nuance, but let's try to make it as calm as possible. I think that is the one melodic thing that all pianists need to learn to do to play this repertory well. So, from the beginning. And we will stop. If you hear me, stop, 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 please excuse me, but we'll do it that way. I'll use my hands too. Okay, beautiful. One thing, do you have to articulate the second of the 16th notes? Can they be under a slur? Okay, now the first 16th note also has an accent on it. Do you hear it? Let's get rid of all of them. More. Okay, very good. Very good. It's fun, isn't it? Now, because you're so good, I'm going to skip steps 2 and 3, and we're going to go to 4. And that is going to be a faster tempo, at which point you are going to feel when a word pulls you, Michael. You're going to have to give it time, but be ungenerous. Give her what she must have to make the word work, and then go right back to tempo. When you get to jouant du luth, first of all, thank you for your wonderful catch the first time around. When we get there, if you can, have a little bit more fun. Da 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 dum, da 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 dum. And just because it's all syncopated now in the left hand, do not play slower. I don't care what she does. This is the kind of accompanying that isn't accompanying. This is conducting. I want you to conduct Jan so that she can get through the phrase riding on the crest of your waves. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. I would like to try the tempo that many years ago Wilfrid Pelletier asked me to do. I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. It was so fast. Da 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 dum, da 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 dum, da 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 dum. Can we try it? Aha, ba 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 ba. No accent. You see, I didn't write that 2-measure phrase. The composer did. That's what I'm after. One more time. What do you think? Jan? Michael?
Sorry, can you hear me or should I come over to the
Yeah, I can hear you. Well, you can come to the mic if you want to, but I can hear you.
It doesn't go to the mic because the live stream is hard to hear.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
Fantastic. I feel so much more flow that way. I think it feels like a much longer line, and I feel that the piano is playing more with the text, which is interesting because I'm trying to do less. but I can feel more interaction between my line and what Jayan is doing.
You know, it's what Bernac said to me many years later than I wish he had of. I didn't work with him that much, but every moment with him was profound in one way or another because I was so green. But fortunately, I was open and I paid attention, and eventually things began to happen for me. It didn't happen immediately. He was very frustrated with me the first time he worked with me, he later confessed. But then he said something like, well, it was similar with most Americans. So, you know, that was always there. That little thing was always there. He said, when the pianist plays as simply as possible, and the singer takes care of the words in the most profound way they can in terms of pronunciation, and pronunciation that is your emotional pronunciation too, as well as just being right or wrong or audible, to be able to be intelligible. It's much more than that. And when you have those two things that seek their own and yet are collaborative enough to work together, then and only then will you have French style. And it's really true. And you just showed us. It was wonderful. And first of all, Jayan, I've worked with people for a week before they were able to do what you just did. Just to feel it naturally. And now you can see how much you can gain. This piece is not the legato is there, but it's not a highly controlled piece. It's an excited piece, right? Even though we have this sense of, you know, the moonlight has sadness in it, it also has beauty in it. It's calm, sad, and beautiful, all of that together. And you have some places here, et sangloté d'extase, et sangloté d'extase, Ligido. You can really go further because of what you've now been able to give through the use of the assistance. This tempo I love very much for both of you, and it would allow you to sing the last line. I have a funny story to tell you in closing. Mr. Bernac always said to me, your tempo is right if the singer can sing Les grands jet d'eau sveltes parmi les marbres. Because he felt that, you know what the jet d'eau is? It's not a fontaine. It doesn't splash all around. It goes up and down. We have a lot of them in our culture now. When I first started teaching, we didn't. But if you go to any summer city, downtown city, they almost have jet d'eau everywhere coming out of the concrete, out of the roads. The first one I saw in this country was in Aspen years ago. So in order to create that Les grands jets d'eau sveltes parmi les, if you can't do that, taking the breath before parmi breaks it up. Now, I learned that from Bernac, but guess what his book says? Take a breath before parmi. I don't know what to say about that, but I prefer it at this tempo in your voice. If you will make the crescendo and just lift to the G sharp, to the G natural, and all the way back down to the low G. in a proud gesture of a G-do. Okay? We'll do that in closing. This time, for example, you took a breath, qui fait rêver les oiseaux. You took a breath, dans les arbres, but you didn't need it, did you? Yeah? There may have been one or the other of a couple of others in the same situation. Michael, you are not playing in the next to the last measure. Your downbeat is a G natural, and it's not a tied note. It's just a slur. It's a 4-measure slur, which is another reason that we have to remember he's always looking for the longest line and never wants those agogics that come out of our fingers unless we're on the key, touching the key all the time so that we don't articulate too much and give accents. Here on the A flat, lift your finger. Da, da, da. Lift your finger off the key. It'll work beautifully. Let's go from Au calme, Claire de Lune. And this time I want you to do something different. Michael, let's let you start in measure 36, let's say. Now, this is a place where the singer is going to do a diminuendo, et leur chanson se mêle au clair de lune. And when she gets down there, she's going to diminuendo into, if you will, the moonlight in the water as you crescendo. Okay? She'll take care of herself. We'll hear lune. We'll hear it. In fact, let's go back to ils n'ont pas l'air, both of you. 32. Michael, I didn't mean for you to get faster. When we get loud in French music, if we get faster, we really ruined the intention of the whole idea. So, one more time. Steady as she goes. You're the conductor. Don't forget it. Okay, now can you do something more special for me? Maybe you want that forbidden time just on the E flat, going to the A flat bass, and then you just say, oh, I didn't do that. I'm right back in tempo. But please, unless you have a harmonic change, which you will, for example, in 41, please don't make a crescendo to the top. This is all in the sound of the bass, A flat. All the other notes, the arpeggii, are inside the sound you've already created with your foot and your finger. Think of that. One more time, just you starting in measure 36. Lovely, lovely. So start there, keep it growing, and keep learning how the words and the music don't work together. They push and pull each other. Okay? So no fair following. Conducting from the keyboard is the nature of this music. And messing up your pianistic partner, singers, all singers, that is your business to the good of the word. The words, the rhythm of the words are completely, or the rhythm of the words is completely different than the musical meter. And it is the marriage. Sometimes it feels unhappy, but it becomes a happy marriage because that is the style. Okay? Good work.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Jimin Park, and this is Guyong Park. We'll be performing La Lune Blanche from La Bonne Chanson by Forêt.
Lovely. You people have had a great semester. You're singing and playing on a very high level. You know, the one thing in teaching that is the most difficult, at least speaking personally, is to not want people to do the tempos that I play. We're all guilty of that, I hope. I hope I'm not in it alone, but it's a very hard thing to let somebody else have a tempo that works for them when I feel my own sort of meter and motors inside myself running faster in this case. But I do believe in experimentation, so I'd like to ask you to experiment with this a little bit faster. At the same time, I want to tell you that was extremely beautiful. And it works with the luscious round color of your voice and the voicing of your piano playing, Gayong. So, Jimin, both of you are well set up together, and the tempo worked for you. But I'm missing a little bit of naturalness in the word. And this, what I would ask you to do when you have this issue in songs, especially French songs, is to read the poem and to not look at the score. Get rid of the vocal score, but to go back to the poem. And I just happened to have it here because I had a feeling that we would be doing this. Now, if you haven't read what Pierre Bernac has to say about this song, I'd really like to ask you to do so, because he says that it's almost as if the three final lines of the three little versettes, au bien-aimé, rêvons, c'est l'heure, and c'est l'heure exquise. Those are like three verses, he said. They encapsulate everything that came before, and they belong together. So I didn't feel that there was even a sense of how long is a sentence. Well, the sentences are all broken up here because the poet stops himself or isn't able to go on. Perhaps he doesn't have words, doesn't want to have words. Maybe it is the quiet, the silence that is important to him. But if you will allow me to, my French is bad, but I'm going to read it anyway for you. La lune blanche luit dans les bois, de chaque branche par une voix sous la ramille. Ô bien-aimé, les temps reflètent profond miroir, la silhouette du sol noir où le vent pleure. Rêvons, c'est l'heure. Un vaste et tendre apaisement semble descendre du firmament que l'astre irise. C'est l'heure exquise. That's really the way it goes. It has to, because there's either no punctuation in some places, or because the words are clear that they go from one to the other. So when you sing it that slowly, things break up because you can't help it. So I'd like to ask you to use a faster tempo that has a little bit more of the suppleness of big singing and the time taking, you know, when you have twos against threes, and actually you don't have that. That's not what, well, yes it is. It's in the piano part. They create tension and they invite us to make space. So I would be happy if you did that at "Oh bien-aimé," right? At the end of the first verse. And then "Rêvons, c'est l'heure" doesn't do that, but it takes a great space of time because the notes are set in such long values, dotted half notes, right? And then at the very end, "C'est l'heure exquise." And how Fauré chose to set it as an understatement. Yeah? So let's start again. I don't know what 76 is. You know, I'm not a very good person about Fauré's metronome markings because he often didn't use them. And in the earlier part of his life, I hope I'm correct. Tanya and JJ, am I correct that he used the metronome markings more in his second and third period, but not in the first. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so somehow I resist metronome markings in him because I think voices are so different. And I know for a fact that playing for all those years with Dawn Upshaw in a lot of Verlaine texts, a lot of French mélodie in general, with her, the tempos that that Bernac recommended often, and that were set by Fauré in particular, seemed to me to be too slow. I think Bernac's problem was that he was a baritone, so his own meter, like I'm telling you about how mine wants to run faster, his meter ran slower because he's a baritone, and baritones tend to sing the same thing as a lovely light lyric soprano would do. They do it slower. So well, I lost myself in that. I'm not even sure I knew where I was going. Well, I know where I was going. But at any rate, let's go back and see if we can find a tempo that is faster. La lune blanche luit dans les bois, de chaque branche par une voix. And I would love it if you would think horizontal always. Gayung, don't be this way. It's not da 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 da. It's ya da da. Play the song nuance business that I asked of Michael. Ya da 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 da. It's almost, maybe you want to move the phrase. Your thumbs are the beginnings. Da da ba da da ba da. So that everything is even, but not loud to the top and bottom, and then softer to the middle. Don't start over with your pinkies. Okay? So at least that tempo, maybe even a little faster. You said it. Sing. Yes, very good. And I would be thrilled if you both did bien. I mean, really grab aimer. Bien is your insistance. Bien aimé. You don't have to take away that crescendo. It's marked as a crescendo. So really articulate that last eighth together. Enjoy it. And then you'll fall right back in the same tempo, right? I don't think you left tempo. This was good. La Lune Blanche. And this tempo solved a problem that a lot of people have. Pardon me. A lot of times we hear La Lune Blanche because that's a beat. Blanche luit dans les bois. But where is the verb? The moon is the subject, right? La lune. And blanche is a modifier. And it should be a monosyllabic word, but it isn't because it's this wonderful music. And where is the verb?
Louis.
Exactly. And yet it's a little tiny eighth note. One of two smallest notes in that measure. The other one is an article. Amazing. So this time the tempo helped you make more of lui because you didn't have time to sit down on che of blanche. So lots of things. I would tell you that one thing you have to work on, and this is another thing that everybody works on in the French repertory, this is like Debussy City. You have long rests in Debussy over phrases that have no punctuation, no break whatsoever. But you'll have a long breath time to wait. And singers need to learn to breathe early to connect. Breathe early and suspend to connect. For example, La Lune Blanche luit dans les bois. De chaque, that's a phrase, that's the end, more or less. De chaque branche part. I would say branche part. So you're breathing immediately to connect, to make more intensity after the rests than you would have if you didn't have the rest. Par une voix. Breathe even earlier this time, and you have to hold it longer, and it will connect to your prepositional phrase, sous la ramure. Ramure, sorry. I have new glasses. They're not working very well. Okay, from the beginning, ladies. With this, let's pick up this tempo. Let's do that one more time. I don't want you to hurry lui. I want you to make room for it. It is the verb. The white moon what? Shines. Okay? One more time. Okay. What do you think?
I felt way more comfortable, and I feel like it makes sense more, and the flow just helps me to be in this emotion more. Yeah.
I prefer this tempo a lot, but I also say that you're slowing down sometimes still. There is something very particular going on in this cycle, compositionally in Fauré, and that is the notion of compacting rhythm. or compacting measures. It's very complicated to talk about. I've only known two people in my life who did talk about it, and one of them's name just escapes me right now. Wow. He's contemporary. We can talk to him about it, and I promise you I'll come up with this. And the other was Marguerite Long, important teacher of this style. And they both speak of measures getting shorter as note values get longer. Now, if you'll think about that in the accompaniments of many of the songs of La Bonne Chanson, you will see that that is sort of the workshop, the pianistic technical workshop in this piece. Let's look at measure 31. We have a big, beautiful piano climax there, and we continue en vaste et tendre apaisement. We have triplets and duplets, and the tendency is often that duplets slow down the triplet. I would like to ask you to allow your duplets to be moved along by your triplets. Okay? So it is vast and tender, and it covers long area, moves slowly in the vocal part in the text, but the piano part should not slow down to that. We're not making something vast by going slower. We're making something vast by going faster so that it feels more and more like, instead of being ta-ta-ta, ta-ta-ta, this excitement, this tremendous rêve-en-celleur, the kind of erotic dream that the music is begging for here. All of a sudden, we have these two measures, these long measures, en vaste et tendre apaisement semble descendre du firmament. And it's only when you read those text phrases in one breath that you begin to hear the rhyme scheme and hear how magnificent Verlaine is, right? So we want it to move along there. So the twos are going to be pushed by the triplets, and when you get to the twos, you should feel like you're playing faster. What I really want is for it to be in tempo, but you will feel like you're going faster. And so the notion of Fauré was to compact so that we absolutely refuse to let a tempo get slower. Sometimes we actually can make it move forward. So when I get to the end of this song, I'm playing faster half note, dotted half notes than I was before, to keep it like a l'heure exquise. This is eroticism. This is crazy, hopeless, magnificent Verlaine and his anxiety and his struggle and his wants and his needs. We have to go there. So rhythmically, we have to solve the end of this piece. Now, I'd like to go back to, let's go start at measure 23. It's a lousy place to start, but let's do it anyway. Où le vent pleure. And then after that, we're going to keep the tempo going by the ta-ta-ta, ta-ta-ta, over and over, voice to voice, with the physical anxiety of going forward, and then really letting this magnificent climax, double forte, how unusual is that for this man, but not to slow down. If anything, think of going more motion into the next line. Keep going, keep going, keep going, so that by the time you get to firmament, que la, stri, it's really moving, really moving. Okay? So don't hesitate to do controlled accelerandi through this whole ending. Mm-hmm. in 1. Yeah. So you have the power to control the meaning of this piece. And I think, even though it's dolcissimo, c'est l'heure exquise, and it's with a K, exquise. Don't be afraid of having a long consonant. I know the rules. Even Tom Grubb asks for it sometimes. Exquise, yeah? And to tell you the truth, and I'm not recommending it unless you like it, I know it says pianissimo at the end, exquise, but in my last piano chord, I play faster into it, a little louder, and then diminuendo the last 2 notes or so. Just so I want to leave them with a shiver. This is a sensual thing, yeah? Very sensual. Questions? Comments?
When I was working with Kayong, we were kind of thinking about using portamento, and we were controlling a lot because we were like, it can be too much, it can be like not appropriate. So,
well, I think that Fauré almost invites I think he's inviting you there because this is sensual music. If this were American music or English language music, we'd call it sexual music, right? Or a lot of my teachers used to talk about after sex songs in Melody, and that really offended me because I had met Bernac too soon to understand that there's sensuality in French music, very seldom sexuality. We have a few Poulenc songs that go there, but that's all, still, after all these years. So it's the sensuality of it that creates the sense that helps us at least to understand that this is sensuality of a sexual nature. And so I would tell you a little portando up, a little tiny baby portamento down is delicious, and I would do it there, but I would do it nowhere else. There is no place. Well, bien-aimé. No, I wouldn't do it there, actually. Because that is the most overt of the 3 announcements in this piece. Oh, bien-aimé. I would just be, really singing well there. But at the end, I would do something very tender and subtle and sensual. Yeah. Good work, ladies.
thank you.
My name is Jaeun Shin, and the pianist is Kyung-Ah Lee. And we're gonna sing Aklimin by Gabriel Fauré.
Mystique
Very good. Whoops, I forgot to mute myself that time. Sorry. I hope it didn't mess things up. I love this tempo. This beats to my own motor. It seems to rev in the same tempo. What I would like is for you, Kyunga, to be a little bit more conductor-like. I think you already are. Do you feel that, Jayan? Yeah, I feel that she's conducting you, but I'd like for you to do it not only just in rhythm, but in a sense of the largeness of the piece. Let's look at this poem a little bit, because it's like the last poem, it's a very unusual one. We know that these verses are always, if you will, about self. When Verlaine writes about "Et trouble l'horizon de ma raison," we know he's talking about his vulnerabilities, his illnesses. If you don't know the most sordid of Verlaine, it's hard for us to get a handle on these songs because they sound so pretty. It's like somebody doing, singing bad words in church, and nobody knows it if you're singing it in Latin. Very often, what we're dealing with from the poetry of Verlaine has a double entendre that is just as black can be, as sick can be, as demented, maybe as demented can be. This is not that. However, it certainly has that personal moment in which he becomes, or he suggests himself to us. Why do we have the word puisque so much? And how many sentences are there in this song, in this poem? How many verses are there? There are 5. But how many sentences are there?
I think there is not many sentences.
Yeah, there's actually one. Only one sentence. It starts, mystique barcarolle, romance sans parole, cher, puisque tes yeux, couleur des cieux, and that's like a noun of address and all its modifiers. And then we start with these prepositions, puisque ta voix, étranger vision de réranger de toute ma raison, puisque l'arôme de parler de ciné, et puisque la candeur, puisque tout do you see? And it takes almost up to, well, it does take until the last verse for us to give up the puisques and finally have a verb, induit mon cœur subtil. And then you say, and so be it. Thus it will be. So I need to feel the emotional tension in all of the puisques. I need to feel that they get bigger or smaller at the hands of Mr. Fauré, who's wrote it bigger. So I need more of that. I need to see that your intensity grows through the piece. And a stronger tempo will help her do that, Kyung-ah. Okay? A little bit more leadership from you. Now, you just sang 2 pieces tonight. This one that you had not planned to. I'm so grateful to you. We all are. And you did it well. I would like to ask for more assistance, and in a subtle way in the pianos and in the beginning, and in a not so subtle way sometimes as we get to the end. Let's read through the text like we did before, because it got good results very quickly from you. I would like to hear mystique barcarolle. So mystique, with the sense of it's how you pronounce the S and the E, mystique, and the k, everything right up here in the top of your mouth, but not upbeat. Mystique barcarolle, mystique. Think of the son nuance that we've been talking a lot about tonight, that I didn't expect to. Isn't that interesting? Mystique barcarolle. And a barcarolle has a lovely lilt, as we know, right? It's a water. Everything's been about water tonight. This one, not in word or in text, but in the heart and soul of the musical form, the barcarolle. Romance sans parole. You can't say sans parole. So this music is not 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. It just isn't. Romance sans parole. You can even be a little bit late getting up to roll. Don't tell anybody I said that, but let you think it, okay? Cher, puisque tes yeux couleur. Interrupt yourself with a comma. Leaves yeux, couleur des yeux, puisque, and so I would take a breath maybe, or if not, at least make a little phrasing before couleur, so that not only do I hear the assistance, I feel the emotion for it. Des yeux, puis a breath before puisque ta voix, étrange vision. Don't be afraid to really do that rhythm. Vision. Que dérange. D is a 16th note that should be as stubborn as any note you've ever sung, because it says deranged. Dérange, right? Et trouble l'horizon. Now, Bernac always insisted that that first O be low, really closed O. Horizon, to match zone, because he wanted it to be more stubborn. And as you can see, he's following the crescendos of the composer. And if we have that anxiety in the forte and really have worked to, I don't want to mean this in terms of playing and singing, but to push emotionally the piece that far, then when you diminuendo, and you both are back and making nice music at de ma raison. And I want raison. I want to know that it is reason. Your reason is probably not reasonable, not sane, but that's what the words say, okay? Puisque la here we go. Rome signe de ta pâleur. I must have your pallor. If I hear de ta pâleur, I have no idea what that means. But de ta pâleur de signe, and you can crescendo on l'heure. Et puisque la quand is your next assistance, candeur de ton odeur. All the O nasals and the O's are closed. Puisque tout ton être, puisque tout, no. Musique, and not an upbeat again, but really musique as an assistance. I want you to sing on that little 8th note, vibrate it like crazy, okay? Pénètre, vibrate like crazy on P. Yeah? In this text and in this dynamic, And in this emotion of Verlaine, it is the little notes vibrating in your soul and in your voice, with insistance, with insistence, that will make it work. Tons et parfum is just not because I don't get the word, but because I want it to feel like an inhalation on parfum, yeah? So that it will join if in crescendo with vibrancy. So this is about vibrating too. Sur dalme cadence. These are auxiliaries. This is just something that you have to do in order for me to hear the word. Now, how you can choose to color it by making straight tone, by making it more vibrated, whatever, by the way you sing the vowel even, those colorful things can come into playing here. En c'est correspondance, correspondance. Yeah? We don't want an accent on res, because if we do, we don't understand the word. Correspondance. Correspondance. Enduit mon cœur subtil. And make sure I hear a tiny little flavor of the L. A subtle, subtle, subtle L. Very short. Okay. So with a little more leadership from your conductor, who's not going to let you slow down, but going to take you ever more. Those forte outbursts are ever more until it is completed. Yep. Let's do it. When you played from the first time, did you put your pedal down before you played? Please do. I don't do it always in French. I think it's a Italian and Germanic kind of thing to warm the sound. But this piece is big enough and rich enough. And oh, by the way, we haven't talked about the white elephant in the room, which is the way Mr. Fauré wrote the pedal marking. Now, I've heard a few people play as dryly as the pedal marking says. Show your audience, Kyung-ah, play that from the beginning with the pedal exactly off where it says. Yeah, now play it the way you were playing it before. Yeah. I wonder what your audience thinks. Yeah, I like a little of each. I think the second one has too much pedal for a man whose music actually gives you an entire beat of 3 in the left hand with no sound coming. But I want to tell you something. I think this has to do with tempo. It also says to me that the tempo has to be fast enough to not make it sound like a hiccup every third beat. Can we do something in the middle? And can you play even faster? Just a little bit. Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful. Now go back and do that at the beginning. Know where you'll have to be at the beginning to get to there. What do you think? Does it bother you when you're not exactly together? When Jan may be a tiny bit late under you, after you, Kyung-ah? Does it bother you? I'm sorry, I can't understand you. Thanks.
You can turn on the mic. It's just a switch. On the top, it's just a switch.
I think it felt okay.
You think it's okay? Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. I love dirty rhythm. Now, I'm not saying that the French embrace it as much necessarily as perhaps the Germans and Germanics do, but I do think that we have to claim our space, and for Cheyenne to be giving time to the assistance will lead you to those places where she's late. And Mr. Bernac, who was the most pristine singer, if you listen to him sing, he never did this once. He wouldn't dare, because he was just precision, precision, precision. That's who he was. But did he like it in other people? Yes, he did. And as early, well, it was late in his life, as 1978, which was the only time I ever worked with him here in America, at one of those wonderful Westminster Choir College summer weeks, studying recital repertoire. And in a class at one point, a singer did exactly what you just did, and the pianist did exactly the opposite. Pianist played straight, pretty much, and the singer got the words out. Now, we didn't use the word assistance, but we did use the word sing the little note, so it was about the little note. And I remember the kind of grin on Mr. Bernac's face when he got that from them. So it's a natural thing. And I encourage you to use it and to allow it to happen so that you discover how much is good and where it begins to have diminishing returns, when it's too much, in other words. Okay? Now, I want to work, we have we even have time for some questions, but I would like to go back and work just on the end of this piece. You were great, tons et parfums. You can be more there, and you need Kyung-ah to give more time. Et par, don't think of about a group of 3 notes. You have to look and always have your eye on the words, so that you're playing words in those dramatic moments as well as your own piano part. I don't know if any of you are thinking like I am. This music, by the time we get to this point in Fauré's output of seeing the bonne chanson and the works that come after it, this piece looks like Rachmaninoff to me. Why do I say that? Because there's so many double stemmed notes. There's so many inner melodies, secondary melodies created over big basses, and all of it he does by giving different note values. He has triplets in 8th notes, but he double stems the first one and gives the C flat, if you're in measure 38 like I am, gives the C flat in the right hand thumb, a dotted quarter note, right? So that is melodic as it plays itself. At any rate, it looks on the page a lot like Rachmaninoff, and guess who Rachmaninoff adored? Late Fauré. Yeah? So this was the stuff he fed on. Not the only stuff, but this was an important composer for him. The whole French style and the Russian style are very closely allied. And this is one of those moments. Okay, so back where we were. We were fine until we got through the big fortissimo in measure 51. And after that, it felt like it wanted to slow down. And I would tell you, this is a place where you want to compact. Now, I can't defend it here in the same way that I can in other places, except that the harmony is moving slower and slower and slower. And as it does that, we have to move more and more. Okay? So, can we keep it moving until we get to ainsi soit-il? And I really don't want you to hurry. Soit-il. There's an insistance that is profound. So be it. Yeah? So let's do how about from the measure, oh no. Where's easy for you to start? Tons et parfums, is that okay? How about musique? Measure 44. And give her a measure before and make sure you're in tempo, okay? So we're going to start the piano in measure 43, and you'll join then in 44, Diane. Yeah. Okay, let's go back and do that. Can you vibrate more on par and on D? Défend. You know, this insistance business, a lot of it is just making a word intelligible. And this could be because of headsets and all kinds of, electronic stuff. But I want you to go after those syllables much more dramatically. In an exaggerated way, as Verlaine is in this moment. Certainly in his writing, that was responded to 100% by the composer, okay? So don't try to make nice with those words. D'ange, yes, ange, angels, great. D'ange défend, have some real regret in it. Tons et parfums, want the perfume more on par. So it's the da and the pa, right? Being careful not to have air, you know how the French hate those aspirations. Okay, same thing. That gave me chills. Soit-il. Now, you had a little bit of problem. Pianists never wait for a singer at the beginning of a measure. in something like this, ainsi, and measure going from measure 65 to 66. Kyung-ah, just play. Just play. Yeah? And she may stop you before the next downbeat after soit-il, and then you'll make your own music going to the end, whatever you want to do. I can't imagine that there's anything involving a retard of any sort here, but there may be something that's unusual, like a little crescendo to the top, because if things are going to be good, things can be very good with a little French ping in the top, can they not? So you never leave your imagination at home. This French music, it sounds like I've been saying to you all night to let the tempo do the work in the piano and let the words and assistance do the work in the vocal line, and I am saying that. But I am also saying never leave your imagination at home, because if you do, you'll never learn what is appropriate for the French style or not. So you have to keep wanting something, like Margo inappropriately wanting rubato in all her French playing before the great Pierre Bernac, and he was having none of it, just none of it. But still don't leave your imagination at home. Let some sparkle be there to show us. Isn't this interesting, just in closing, measure 59 and is all still triplets, but look, your subtil is a duplet. It comes early. Does that not make for more motion? Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. All righty. Good work. Very good work. Anybody? And Jayan, thank you so much for saving this piece tonight, or the first piece. Anybody have comments, questions, anything you want to say? Yoo-hoo!
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Kat. I was just wondering, I guess, the difference in when you're using accent assistance for the overuse of accenting, like in general, versus like how do you tell the difference between over accenting, or is there no in your opinion, is there no room for over accenting of words? Like I guess, how do you decipher when something is being just overly emphasized in every single syllable without much without the definition that it requires? I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, but you could be saying, and it would be a legitimate worry, if you're saying, sometimes I hear people doing so much, insisting accent that it becomes like a shtick, and it takes me away from the French language. Well, to that I would say, if somebody is making their early efforts, I believe you almost have to overdo it in order to understand the concept enough. I think it has to be enough to affect rhythm. If you go back and listen to Crespin, for example, She does it all the time, everywhere. But the difference is sometimes it's there just to help us understand a little syllable, and sometimes it's there to rock our world, and it's very big. So, but to learn the concept is so foreign from our using language that is complementary and collaborative or inspired by the musical meter. In this repertory, it is not. And so we have to really reach a long, long way in order to grab hold of this idea, because it will affect rhythm. It'll make you feel antagonistic with your partner to a certain extent. And the more you get to know it, it can settle down and be subtle.
Okay.
But I think you have to start from being too big. Were you asking that question?
Yeah, I was trying to word it right. That was exactly my question.
Can you overdo it? Absolutely. Should you overdo it in the beginning? Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay.
Because if you haven't gone too far, you don't know where far enough is.
Right.
Yeah. In my opinion.
Yeah, and I think some thought that really hit me today was that, like, English is so defined by the accent, and it really changes the meaning of what we're saying if we don't accent words correctly. So I guess it's a new thing for me to grasp the concept that the French language doesn't require that, but expressed in very different ways.
Yes, it is. To say musique, in English we would say music, and it would be ridiculous, right? But French has this magnificent tonic stress, musique, but it flows. That is where the motion is. And if we don't have a tail, it's like having something to hang on to it. Let's put it this way. If you want your kite to fly, and if that is a tonic stress, when a kite flies, you best have something grounded to it, or you'll just lose it. So, musique is so delicious, but what did I do? I vibrated, I sat down on me and loved it with all my might.
Yeah.
And you need to overdo that in the beginning for it to really happen. Now, the French singers that I played were few in number, but one of them, Monique Baudin, and I did some wonderful work together, because she helped me understand that in the moment, an insistance can appear or disappear. And it has to do with nothing except one's emotional status at the moment. And it was the most delicious playing I ever enjoyed doing, in the simplest, as Michael said, and he said it very well. I feel like I'm being, tightened up rhythmically, and yet I feel freer. And that's what it's all about. So ultimately, no, it shouldn't be something that somebody says, oh my God, what are they doing with all those funny accents? It's not that at all. But it can start from there, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Yeah.
I wanted to add, for anyone who's streaming, if they have any questions, they can add them into the YouTube chat, and we can moderate that from here and pass that along to Margo. So
good.
Everyone's streaming.
Hello. A question for you regarding tempo, because it seems like kind of, this overarching thing that is so often discussed whenever you bring something to a coaching, a lesson, a masterclass, etc. I just wonder if you could talk for a moment about what your process has been in discovering the tempos that you talk about, kind of your inner motor or metronome. and how you come to the realization of this is the tempo that is correct, I think, for this piece, and how does it change working with one singer to another singer? You know, how do you determine the tempo needs to be different because I'm working with this singer versus, you know, the tempo that I have in my head is what I want to pursue. You know, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. Well, I think for collaborative pianists, it is magnificent to have a tempo in your head that you adore. But I think it's dangerous. And I would tell you to have the question mark in your head of what is this singer's breath possibility? What is this singer's, who is this singer? All the things that you know about the singer. This is a very fast moving language. And does Joyce DiDonato thrill me when she sings, or Miss Graham, Susan Graham, do sometimes these days, do they thrill me doing what they do with those slow tempi? Well, they're both mezzos. And I wouldn't say the same things to different voice types. But the French repertory is largely a high-voiced, lighter voice, faster-moving voice. The baryton Martin is troubled because of its range. Everybody wants this language to be sung high. And so a lot of my notion about tempo is simply because of the naturalness of the poetry. And that I want tempi to be reflected by the words. I want that in English too. But our language is very different from the French. We have a very strongly, accented way of speaking and tremendous inequalities that the French don't have. So my basic idea about tempo is that if you can do it well, faster, please do. And then experiment. I mean, I do tremendous amount of experimentation just as a pianist and coach. I've played songs, for one example is Mendelssohn's song, Yum, pom, 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 pa, pa, ta, 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 träume, da, da, dum, da, 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 da. And I loved it. All my life, I played it like that. And then years ago, a conductor got hold of me and he had me play yum ba da 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 dum ba yum da 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 dum da träume ya da dum ba da 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 yum. And for the particular singer I was playing for, that was Judith Raskin, it was perfect. So I would say experiment, and experiment grandly, but not too slowly in the French repertory, because we are too inexperienced as portrayers of this magnificent repertory to understand it if we go too far away from the naturalness of the language. It's just healthier, a better place to start. Yeah? So don't get wedded to your tempos. Get wedded to the poetry. Read it over and over and over. Get your singers to do that with you, all of that. Yeah?
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a question from the chat.
Sure.
This is from Maria-Lise. She is a pianist from France, and she has also noticed the connection between Russian and French music that you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. And she was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more about that connection and any other aspects that connect those two styles together.
Yeah. It's interesting to me because for me, Rachmaninoff is the biggest rubato I ever knew, except for Schumann. And but it's really not true. It's a different kind of rubato. It's what we deal with a little bit in this French stuff. So I think that as a pianist, the Russian school is very much related to the French school in terms of sound and balance, liking pings in melodies from pianists and singers, no matter what voice type you are, not wanting a big harmonic bass that sort of fills up everything, but a little bit more kind of clarity, a clarté that it gives you translucency as an idea rather than opaqueness in terms of sound, harmonic sound. Just the way Rachmaninoff wrote, if you look at the vocal concerto or whatever it is of Glière for soprano, if you don't know what to do with that piece, if somebody were to tell you, oh, well, this is the mysterious French composer that we're studying, if you operate from that point of view, you'll also be very successful, because there's a weight or a lack of weight in the music that is, even in Tchaikovsky, some of the big guys. I'm not talking about Mussorgsky, but all the rest of it, there's a very big color palette that is similar, motion that is similar, and sensibility of rhythm that is similar.
Thank you.
Sure.
Margo, it's been such a blessing to be in your presence tonight.
Oh, it's fun. It's just frustrating, though. I'd like to talk to all of you, and maybe we will one day soon.
Here in person next year, I think we assume.
Oh, I hope so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure. All the best to everybody. You will get through the semester. You will get through the semester. Take it easy. Be kind to each other. Be safe. That's all that matters. Thank you for the pleasure.